good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Recently, Khazanah Research Institute released a report titled Shifting Tides, Charting the Career Progression of Malaysia's Skilled Talents. It focused on the challenges faced by Malaysian graduates during their transition from higher education into the workforce. So joining me on the show today are the good folks from Khazanah Research Institute, Deputy Director of Research Hawati Abdul Hamid, who was the project lead on this report, and also Research Associate Dr. Muhammad Amirul, Rafiq, Rahim. Welcome both of you to the show. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm excited to discuss this this report, which I think kind of cemented what we had suspected was happening within the labour market. But maybe how I can begin with you, and you can maybe explain to us what specific gaps or areas of concern that prompted you to want to undertake the study. What were some of the hypotheses or the assumptions that guided your research?
Okay, thank you so much, Melisa, for having us today. Maybe if I would like to begin to say that when I was first embarking into this graduate employability project, I wasn't that really convinced whether this is a pressing issue or not. Because after all, graduates are individual with intellectual prowess from higher institutions. So why there's a need to actually pay attention so much on their problem. But then we also see that there have been a lot of issues being talked about graduate employability over the years. And we've seen actually, this is not something new, that we've seen persistent underemployment and skill mismatches. And people have been talking a lot about wage stagnation. And I wonder whether there is something more beyond what people are thinking, and whether the returns on higher education have been declining or not. Hence, that's why we feel that it is necessary to do this research on this topic, to examine the issues and challenges that graduates encounter during not only during their transition process from higher education to work, but also we want to know what happened to them beyond after leaving several years education. So we also would like to investigate the efficacy of labour market ecosystem in addressing graduate employability. So there is at least two hypotheses. At least I am a lot more on the positive side. I thought that the problem of what we have been hearing about the problem of graduate employability is just transitional issue among fresh graduates. And probably after several years leaving the university, our skilled workforce or our skilled talent will be doing okay. So those were some of our hypotheses, and we would like to see whether this is the case or not.
Okay, so you at first started this not quite sure whether this was a real pressing issue. Why did you feel the need to track it for a few years? So I think usually we just assume that we'll just check what their first job was.
Yes.
Instead, you decided to track the career progression for a few years. And did you come to the conclusion that this was, in fact, a pressing issue?
Yes. So actually, this project started with an invitation from Ministry of Higher Education offering KRI and access to a very huge amount of data of graduate tracer study, which they have collected for about 1 decade. We have about 12 years time series data comprising about 2.5 million records of graduates, local graduates from local higher institution. So, but then we also reckon that the way this survey being done is that it's only targeted among fresh graduates who just left the higher education institution for about 6 to 1 year. So we recognize that probably the effect of education would take a longer time for us to see the return. After all, what can you do within 1 year, right? So to really talk about their performance, their achievement within 1 year. That's why after we have settled doing the research on fresh graduate, we embark on another small survey targeting at least 2 cohort within the same graduates that we have been working. We select a graduate who have been about 10 years in the workforce, and another one have been in 5 years in the workforce, and we want to compare what have been the progress.
Okay, can you give us a little summary of what you found with those in the findings of that survey?
Okay, I think we will be discussing about the findings in detail, but at least there are at least 4 things that have been quite surprising to me.
Sure.
Okay, firstly is about this issue of low wages and overqualification or skill mismatches. It is not only vertical mismatches, meaning that our graduates are taking up work that is lower, require lower qualification. Lower qualification that they have, but also horizontal mismatches, which mean that they are also settled in job that are not really matched with what they have studied.
Ah, I see.
So and this issue overqualification and low wages has been quite persistent at least over the last 1 decade. I think Amirul, my colleague, later will detail out about this finding. And also we also see this path dependency, meaning that if someone started wrong, in a wrong footing or in a wrong job during their first entry into the labour market, this can have a enduring effect on their career trajectory and their career progression. So we see that at least 1/3 of experienced graduate who have started wrong continue to be in that wrong mismatch jobs over time. And thirdly, we also discover the stepping stone effect. I mean, if you look at, when we study the literature, in other jurisdiction or in other countries, this stepping stone effect, meaning that they go into a temporary or contract job first before they landing into a more stable job, have been quite positive in terms of their career trajectory. But it is not the case in Malaysia. Meaning that if you just want to pass by, you just want to be chill within the first 1 or 2 years, and perhaps that can carry some weight in terms of your next career. That doesn't happen in Malaysia, at least in our case that we study.
Gosh, that's fascinating. Okay.
And the 4th one is actually about the structural economy issue. That is something that we will discuss later, I suppose,
Sure.
in terms of how job creation have been very underwhelming to accommodate the huge expansion of tertiary education over time.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring Amirul into the conversation, because one of the things that I thought was particularly interesting was, yes, we have higher graduate employability rates, but the employment outcomes weren't as satisfactory or weren't necessarily better. So what does that mean? Could you help put that into context for us in terms of the overall economy? What does that point to?
Thank you, Melisa, for the question. I think let me just begin my answer with defining what is actually the component of graduate employability itself. According to the classification by Ministry of Higher Education, this graduate employability means referring to the status of our graduates, that is, who are employed, currently employed, and those who are continuing their studies, and participating in any form of reskilling or upskilling, and as well as those who are waiting for job placement. So if these 4 components would constitute into this graduate employability rate, so meaning to say they are employable.
Right.
Right?
Okay. So it's a basket. A group of people. Okay.
So our analysis earlier in this report have shown that there is actually quite a significant progress in terms of graduate employability rates in the country. So we see that compared to a decade ago, the employability rates increasing about from 70% to about 85% in 2021. It signifies a good progress,
yes.
Right? But in terms of actual employment outcomes, it tells a different story lah. Right. Contrary to the assumption, we see that only about 60% of our graduates actually can land into employment right after graduation. So we have this 85% of those employability rates, but only 60% of them are actually can land for an employment. From this 60%, about 40% of them are actually overqualified.
Wow. Okay.
And so this is also something that we wanted to that we highlight in the report, especially in terms of the disparity, in terms of the disparity between job quantity and quality. So we see that, as I mentioned, there is a increasing trend of our graduates who can secure a job every year, right? From about 40% in 2010 to 60% in 2021. A significant portion of our graduates are actually land into non-standard form of job. That means they are land into this contractual basis
Gig
and part-time
work.
work. Gig work. We don't say this non-standard job always bad, but it always offers you lacking of stability as well as this lack of career progress.
Okay.
So and then that's why we discuss this very detailed in the report. Then we suggest that to shift our focus instead of just looking in terms of the rate of employability, we should also consider the quality of job that our graduates are landing in after their graduation.
Okay. Looking at the quality of the
yes,
job.
looking into the quality. Then this would also, like how I mentioned just now, the stepping stone effect is very important, right? And just to conclude for this question, I think the key here is not just to ensure our graduate can find jobs. It's also important for us to ensure that they can land into a quality of job. It's about setting a path for our graduates for their future, right? Yeah.
I am so interested in this stepping stone effect. So maybe you can talk to us a little bit about the importance of that first job, the importance of the first job in shaping how much they make, their career progression, their salary progression, and why do we get that mismatch wrong for the first jobs? What have you learned in your research? Hawa or Amirul, do you have anything to add?
I think I can contextualize this discussion in terms of supply side, the supply of our talent and the graduate that we produce every year. So when we talk about graduate employability, right, it is actually important for us to look into approach that address the demand side of the labour market and what we produce to our labour market. So so the data from critical occupation list from Talent Corp have shown that there is a clearly mismatch in terms of the field of the graduates from different field of study and the demand that our critical job that required in the labour market.
Okay.
So for example, so we have this we produce a significant numbers of graduates in social sciences, business and law for about almost 40% every year. But it can only satisfy about 16% of our critical job demands, right? Yeah, and then when we look into the engineering, manufacturing and construction, there is a notable shortage for this particular field, where they accounting for about 20%, but we need this 30% of demand for this particular fields and skills in the labour market. So this is where the issue of mismatch comes in, and this is where the issue of stepping stones come in. So our findings have shown that 30%, almost 40% of our graduates who start their jobs with overqualified or mismatched job, with the qualification or with the fields of study, would stay there for even after 10 years. Being in the labour market.
So you mean they never actually course correct and go into their field of study?
It will be quite hard for them to cross correct their trajectory. But probably I think maybe we can also highlight the fact that things have been very, very challenging in the labour market, especially with the increase in the number of graduates. Our enrollment in the university have increased from about 30,000 in 1970s to about 1.2 million students right now, total enrollment. And every year we produce about 300,000 graduates from across level of qualification, diploma, degree and postgraduate. So with this number, increase in the number of graduates, coupled with a more limited high-skill job, it had become a lot tougher for our graduate to find suitable, and they have to resort to any opportunity that come in front of them. They can't be really choosy, just to at least ensure that they can pass by. But this is exactly the problem. Once they started to do that, it will have a very long-term effect on their career. And I think this is why it is important to actually pay attention on this last mile intervention to help our graduate, especially when after we have invest so much on higher education, be not a government, as well as the student themselves. They take a student loan, they take PTPTN, but
and the investment of time as well, right?
Yes, but at the end, when they are done with what they have studied, the reality of the labour market is quite tough for them.
Okay. Can I get you to elaborate on that, Hawa? The realities of the labour market, the demands, the demand side. What are employers demanding? In terms of the demand for skills and the availability of jobs, what's available? Why does it not correspond with the supply that's coming out of universities?
Okay, so in terms of the demand, we have to look, I think when we talk about demand, it is beyond education alone. So it is also closely tied with our economic structure. And then I think from time to time we will be hearing that employers would be complaining about our graduates who are not that equipped in terms of technical skill or even interpersonal skills to meet industry expectation. I think that is something that is a valid views that we need to address. But beyond that, we also have to look in terms of the job creation in the economy. I have to highlight that in all of our national development plan, government have this target of job creation, and we can say that most of the time they hit the target, but it's just that what types of job being created. Over time, we've seen that a lot of jobs have been created for semi-skilled job. And the job creation for high skill have been shrink a lot from about 40%, 42% to about 30%. So this means that there have been a lot more limited high skill job or graduate job for our graduates. And then we see that if you look at our economy, we know that it is concentrated in services industry, and this is where actually a lot of job creation have been happening in that services industry. But it's just that I think we have to unpack about what types of job is created in the services industry, where some part of job like professional in digital, AI, technology, there have been a lot of gap in terms of filling up the demand from the industry. But yet for other types of services which are a lot more traditional, like clerical jobs or a lot more feminine job or social jobs, social services, traditional services, that those are also being created, and this is where our provide opportunity, but then provide opportunity for our graduate. But in terms of what's coming up from the university to fill up the demand in terms of shifting industry that I mentioned just now, have been quite a challenge for the industry to really find the talent.
Yeah, it's the quality of the job, the nature of the skills involved with that. I mean, it feels like there is, you're right, because it's the structure of our economy, but it feels like it doesn't correspond correctly with what we are, what we're learning in university, what we are graduating with, what qualifications we are graduating with. There was another chapter in the report that I thought was quite interesting, which focused on self-employment. And that also made me think about whether this is an outcome that we would want for our graduates. So, Amirul, I have to ask you, is self-employment considered a desirable alternative for graduates? Should we, or should government be encouraging graduates to move into entrepreneurship or move into self-employment through policy interventions?
Yeah, this is quite an interesting findings from the report itself. Our analysis have shown that there is an increasing trend of graduates who are shifting into this self-employment for their first career. However, as time goes by, the percentage of those who stays as being self-employed has been declining. So this is quite interesting, right?
Oh, because they start out and then they shift into kind of formal or standard employment.
While many of them see that this entrepreneurship thing, self-employment, can give them a potential in terms of earning and flexibility, major chunk of them think that this self-employment is a temporary solution for them to escape for unemployment. So this is, I think, something need to be done in terms of our policy perspective in looking into this. It also, we should consider the diverse motivations and challenges why this is happening. We don't want that because we invest so much for them to train them to be in self-employment, right, in the university. So now we have this some program to instill entrepreneurship mindset, the courses and whatnot. So we don't want that they think that if this entrepreneurship thing is something as an option for them, as a temporary solution for them to escape from unemployment after graduation. And also we see that this, even though this entrepreneurship not that encouraging among our graduates, we see there is some potential in certain cohort, especially among those with TVET qualification. So among the TVET, there is a greater potential for them to have higher earning when they participating in this self-employment or entrepreneurship. But again, they will need a very strong. They need a very strong guidance and support to succeed.
Yeah.
And another problem with our, I think, from the data that we have, we highlight the lack of awareness and accessibility towards the government intervention and assistance. For example, these programs on financing, entrepreneurship financing, as well as some other entrepreneurial training. Right. So they don't know the existence of this kind of program. So this is quite sad, right?
They're not accessing all the opportunities.
Access. So we feel that we need to address this because it is essential for us to have this thing, this ecosystem that we can capture all the segment among the graduates.
Okay, so based on everything that you've just said, I have to ask you, what then should policymakers be thinking about? If they want to improve this career progression, the transition from education to work for young graduates, what should they be focusing on? What should they be prioritizing, not just in the short term, but also in the long term? Hawa?
Okay, yeah. At least if you're talking about graduate employability, certain things are beyond the ambit of higher education alone. So in these regards, we basically bucket our policy recommendation into 3 areas. The first one, I think, will be the tough one, is in terms of reforming our structured economy to create a lot more decent job, a lot more high pay job and high skilled job. So that's one. And I believe that with the several master plan that we have in the pipeline, such as National Industrial Master Plan, National Energy Transition Master Plan, and even aging policy, which we will require a lot more care professionals in that regards. So those are the areas that I think would need to be given a lot more attention in terms of job creation. So that is one. The second one would be related to the education sector. We feel that a lot more the review of programs and curriculum need to be done in a more regular basis, especially in terms of tracking the rapid evolution of our industry. Things have been changing a lot more rapid, more recently with technological advancement, and our university need to catch up with these changes. And I believe that monitoring of our graduate progression and employability, as what have been done by the Ministry of Higher Education, they have already the data. But it's just that they, even Amirul highlighted just now that the definition is quite problematic to really see the real employment outcome. So we were proposing that probably the operational definition of graduate employability should need to be relooked again. And
to make it narrower and more specific?
And a lot more specific and focus a lot on the quality, quality of employment, so that we can really track what have been going on. And then for education system as well, I believe that they have this one particular intervention to actually help transition of graduates to the labour market in terms of internship. We have conducted one thorough study in terms of internship, and it points out to us that internship may not be have a lot effect if it is not done properly. It can be a positive outcome to the graduate if it depends on where they do, what types of job they do for their internship. And we also encourage would be advocating a lot in terms of paid internship, because I think you've known that a lot of our graduates have been rallying about this. Interns are not bureau free.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but I think that is a very good reason for this, because we've seen that for those who have undergone with paid internship, typically their employment outcome have been a lot more positive than those who are not. This probably, I think, because since the employer are giving is paying for the internship, they are more committed. They are a lot more committed.
They invest in the intern.
They're investing. Yeah. It's not just having a free labor for them.
Okay. Amirul, can I get you to sum up your final thoughts of what you would like to see in terms of policies?
Yeah, of course. I would like to add into at least into two aspects in terms of recommendation for active and passive labour market policy. First, in terms of active labour market policy, we feel that it is important for us to expand, to have this accessibility to public employment services, to focus more on quality of jobs. So when we look into the data, right, there is a discrepancy between these two public and private employment services, where the public employment services always having concentrated into low-skilled and semi-skilled job vacancies compared to the private ones. And also, as I mentioned earlier, we have these growing numbers of graduates in informal sectors. It is important for us to ensure these graduates in informal sector have gained and access into training, social security, and also employment benefits, because our employment benefits only covers those who are contributing to the PERKISO, right? And then the third point is in terms of entrepreneurship. It should be ingrained at early on. So yeah, so that's why the interest should be imparted in early on. It's not that because you don't get jobs,
it's
then
not
you
an afterthought,
yeah, it's not
right?
the afterthought.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
and also, as I mentioned earlier, we see that there is the potential of TVET graduates in this self-employment, so that I think it's important for us to tailor support for entrepreneurship for this group. Right. And also in terms of passive labour market policy, it is important for us to have these special benefits to facilitate the smooth transition for job seeking. For example, we can have we can continue this giving allowance to our graduates. Just to put in context,
they are looking for work.
They are looking for a job. It is not something new. Other countries are doing it, like Australia and whatnot. Just to put in context as well, 80% of our graduates in the database are actually someone are actually coming from low-income families. So this is the most challenging part, right? You don't have that resources for you to start out in the labour market.
And you have both pointed out how important the first job is. Unfortunately, I could talk to you both about this for another hour or so, but we have run out of time, and I want to thank you both for coming and sharing your findings of your report. That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.